And gentlemen, welcome to the Electoral Commission. This is our first briefing in the February registration weekend. This morning, voting stations opened. We're here to brief you as Electoral Commission on what are the developments. Joining me this afternoon is Deputy CEO, Mr. Shiburi Maseko Shiburi, and next to him, I'm with Grenville Abrahams. Both the three of us will make sure that South Africa is updated. DCO Shiburi, let's get the show on the ground.
Good afternoon. The Electoral Commission is pleased to report that the second registration weekend ahead of the imminent 2024 national and provincial elections got off to a good start. Within 5 hours of the registration process getting underway across the network of 23,303 voting stations nationwide, the Commission reports a seamless start with over 99% of the stations operational within minutes of the commencement time of 8 o'clock in the morning. We pass a word of gratitude to the 68,700 electoral staff who are manning those stations and doing country duty. In the initial hours of this 2-day registration weekend, an impressive 304,221 voters have visited voting stations. Of that figure, 55,019 were persons who were registering for the first time. In other words, persons who enter the voters' roll for the very first time. This early turnout not only sets a positive tone for the registration period, but also serves as a testament that citizens remain engaged with affairs of their country. Today alone, the online voter registration portal recorded over 20,525 transactions. Of those, 7,234 were new registrations, i.e. persons entering the voters' roll for the first time. We urge voters who may have had a less than pleasant experience using the online platform to try again. The platform remains available 24 hours a day until the day on which the date of the election is proclaimed by the President. This weekend's important registration activity comes on the back of two major achievements by the Electoral Commission, and these are that the National Voters' Roll has for the first time surpassed the 27 million mark voter registrations. Secondly, that the online registration platform continues to yield return on investment in that for the first time, registration activity outside of voting stations has surpassed the 200,000 mark between November last year and today. To date, 498,000 persons have transacted on the online platform since the last registration weekend. For voters who may have misplaced, mislaid, or lost their identity documents, they may receive these replacement documents from the Department of Home Affairs. The Department of Home Affairs will maintain its network of offices open today and tomorrow to assist those category of citizens. The Commission wishes to extend its profound gratitude to the Department for enabling citizens to participate in affairs of their country. It is important to reiterate that our collective goal as a nation remains to ensure that every one of the eligible voters in South Africa is registered to do so, whether they do so by visiting any of the 23,303 voting stations or registering online. It is therefore worth repeating what the scheme of the law is, and that is a person registers and votes in a voting district where they ordinarily reside. And for this election, it will not be possible for a voter to vote outside the voting district at which they are not registered without further giving notice to the Chief Electoral Officer of their intention to vote outside their voting district and also to indicate the details of that other voting district. The details and the modality for applying for or giving pre-notification to the Electoral Commission will be regulated in the election timetable, which will be published by the Commission following the announcement of the election date. In conclusion, the Commission encourages all eligible voters to seize the remaining hours of the registration weekend to visit their station or to go online to register for purposes of participation in the forthcoming election. This is your democracy. Own it, and I thank you.
Thank you so much, DCO Shiburi. I'm going to open the floor for questions. Any questions of clarity? The floor is open. May I see a show of hands as well as the media house where you come from? Thank you so much. Let me start with you, Natasha, and then we'll proceed down the table. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kate. Excuse me, it's Natasha Piri here from SABC News. Mr. Shiburi, I think, could you just also clarify one issue? And I think a lot of people are getting it wrong, including, leaders of political parties. We've been hearing people saying that this is a final voter registration. I think this is a final voter registration drive because the president hasn't declared the elections yet. So meaning people can still register to vote. Yes, people can still register online and of course at the various IEC offices. Can you just please clarify that to South Africans? Furthermore, there was inmate voter registration this week. What are the figures? How many inmates registered to vote? And then it seems as if everything, like you said, was satisfactory today. There are no protests. Can you just also please just clarify that for us? Thank you.
Katlego Sohoto from Kaya 959. Mr. Shiburi, could you remind us again about the etiquette of political parties at voting stations? Just in terms of, in a way, not being invasive to people who've come to register. Obviously, political parties campaigning for their own, parties, but just what are the rules around what they should and shouldn't do? And just an update on the disaster-struck areas, Western Cape with the fires, as well as in KZN with the floods, those temporary structures, is that going well?
Question that I'm missing at the back? Are we covered? Okay, let's proceed. DCO will have a look at those issues. DCO Shiburi?
Thank you. First things, the voter registration at a voting station affords or extends convenience to voters. So it is a targeted period at which we extend convenience. However, registration is a continuous exercise. A person can register at any point, whether at a local office or online. The only consideration being that a person must have been registered before the elections are proclaimed in order to take part as a voter in those elections. So voter registrations remains open until the date on which the president declares the date of an election. The etiquette of parties at voting stations. Parties are allowed to be represented at registration points by a party agent. A party agent may observe the process. Parties are also permitted to maintain temporary operating facilities outside the boundaries of a voting station. They can interact with voters. The only thing that they are prohibited to do is that they must not cause a nuisance or they must not interfere or impede direct access of voters into the voting stations. However, parties may not undertake any political activity within the boundaries of a voting station. Similarly, a person who is accredited as a party agent cannot wear party regalia within the boundaries of a voting station. So in broad terms, those are the etiquette that relates to parties at a voting station. And this is key because in the South African context, we do not subscribe to election silence. In other words, there is still level of political activity permitted in the country. It is not outlawed all political activity is outlawed only within the boundaries of a voting station. The questions related to disaster in the Western Cape, fortunately, it is reported that we had overnight rain in the Overberg area, and that has helped with the containment of those fires. In all areas where there have been inclement weather, our voting stations are up, whether in a temporary form or in fixed facilities. So we are up and running. I'll ask Granville to deal with the question related to the registration of inmates.
Thank you, DCO. I think what we must first of all remember is the following, that when it comes to inmates, then Section 24B applies to them. And what Section 24B says is that on voting day, that prisoners are deemed to be registered in the voting district where they are incarcerated. So what this means is, as long as an inmate is registered, it does not really matter where he is registered. So I'm saying that up front because it could impact, and also if you have any follow-up questions as to why the numbers may be interpreted as to be too low. We've had up to date, we've had about 3,000 registrations that have come in via our visits, and I think we have about 180 facilities that we had visited. Secondly, I must also add is that inmates do not necessarily, well, they don't have their ID documents with them where they are incarcerated, mostly at home. And there's also now the option for a family member to register them online, obviously, instead of going through the expense of taking it to them. Having said that, I must also say that the Department of Home Affairs has been very active also in facilitating access to ID documents, and we are satisfied that with the exercise that we have done this weekend, that we've made available a facility for those who want to register, and we have accomplished that with the assistance of the logistical arrangements of correctional services. Thank you. All the questions are done.
Colleagues, let me check if there's any other hands. Okay. I see one here. I see Natasha. Let's proceed, please.
Hello, Raymond from Network 24. The president this week mentioned something about possible interference from international agencies, foreign agencies, and the Minister of State Security also mentioned it. Is the IEC concerned about possible interference? And what are you working with the State Department, the State Security Department, to mitigate those possible fears?
And then just the question on protests, have there been any incidents reported? Thank you.
Any question I'm missing at the back? There's a hand. Are we good? We covered? Online, Piladi, are we good? Thank you so much. Let's deal with those questions. Thank you very much, DCO.
Thank you. Look, on the question of foreign interference, it will be foolhardy to move from the premise that there isn't any and that there won't be any. However, the saving grace is that our voting processes are manual. We vote at the voting station, we count at the voting station, we announce the results at the voting station, all this in the presence of party agents and observers where they are present. And we then continue then to automate our results onto a results system. But whatever result we announce, it's already known. So the chances of interference, while we cannot rule them out 100%, we think our system is such that we are not exposed to any risk because there is no transmission of results or transmission of voting during the day. But we are working internally to fortify are systems to minimize and mitigate the risk of illicit interference in the result announcement. The issues of protest, indeed, Natasha, I should expect that with every big electoral activity in the country, there are those persons who unfortunately still feel the need to link their grievance to the electoral process and thereby impede the rights of other South Africans to participate in a civic event of civic expression. There are isolated cases where we have not been able to open station. It's not because of want of preparation on our part. It's because the situation is such that we do not want to expose persons at risk unnecessarily. We are, however, working with the South African Police Service, who have opened the majority of the stations at which we struggled in the morning. The number is insignificant if you compare to the total number of stations that are open.
Thank you so much, Team IEC. Looks like all the issues have been dealt with. Our platforms remain open. WhatsApp will share the statement digitally to make sure that you're able to access it speedily. But for now, I must say that the work is outside. Thank you so much for the rolling coverage from members of the media that are doing a very sterling work. From the Electoral Commission, thanks a lot. DCO, Abrahams, thank you very much. Let me bring this press briefing to a close. Thanks lots. Chomis from the media, see you later. Thanks, bye-bye.